So, by January 15th, I mean, nearly 80% of all New Year's resolutions are they're already dead.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's so fast.
Right. It's crazy because you make this massive, beautiful promise to yourself on December 31st. You're like, I am going to completely overhaul my
Oh,
life.
yeah, the classic new me speech.
Exactly. You tell yourself, I'm going to achieve fluency in a new language, or, I'm going to get into the best shape of my life, or finally start that business.
Mm.
And then exactly 2 weeks later, you find yourself just staring at this very comfortable sofa, and it seems to be whispering to you, like, just sit down, you know, watch one more video. We can change your life tomorrow.
It's the great universal human experience. I mean,
Hmm.
that sofa has a surprisingly strong psychological pull,
Oh, it really does.
and it almost always wins,
Hmm.
especially when we rely entirely on these, like, big dramatic bursts of willpower to just push us through our days.
Right.
Because, well, willpower is a finite resource,
Right.
and by mid-January, the tank is usually completely empty.
And that is exactly what we are dissecting today. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. I'm so glad you're here with us. We're looking at this really incredible collection of notes and transcripts from the Speak English with Class series.
Yeah, these are fantastic sources.
They really are. And, while the context is often about learning a language, the underlying mechanics, they're really just about human behavior.
Exactly.
So today we're unpacking exactly why your brain routinely sabotages your biggest dreams
Hmm.
and more importantly, the tiny psychological shifts you need to finally outsmart it.
Right. Because what's fascinating here is when you look at the behavioral data in this material,
Mhm.
success is rarely about these giant, painful leaps of effort.
Yeah.
It is almost entirely about how you structure your daily environment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission for this deep dive is to figure out the vital difference between setting a vague goal and building a reliable daily system,
Yeah.
and how to actually stick to it, without hitting that massive wall of burnout.
Hmm. Which is so common.
It totally is. But before we get to the solution, we have to kind of examine the trap first, because we all have these grand visions, right? Like, I want to be fluent in English, or
Let's-
I want to lose 30 pounds.
Right. And those are what the material defines as outcomes. They're destinations.
Okay.
And having a clear destination is important, obviously, because it gives you a sense of direction.
Yes.
But an outcome is not an instruction manual.
Wait, let me challenge that premise for a second, because, I mean, are dreams and goals not enough to generate action? Like,
What?
if I look in the mirror and just say, I am going to get healthier, or I want to improve my English, isn't that a clear directive? I mean, I know what practicing English looks like, right? Why isn't that enough to get me moving?
Because knowing what the finish line looks like doesn't actually tell your brain where to take the very first step.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, saying, I want to improve my English is what behavioral psychologists call a vague goal.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely undefined. It lacks coordinates. To understand why the human brain rejects this, think of a vague goal, like a car's GPS.
I love this analogy from the notes.
It's so good, right? If you get into your car and just type somewhere nice into the navigation system, what happens?
I mean, the GPS just sits there, can't calculate a route without a specific address.
Precisely. You have the vehicle, you have a full tank of gas, which is basically your motivation, and you're ready to drive.
Right.
But because the destination is vague, the brain's executive function just gets paralyzed by ambiguity. You end up, well, driving in circles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Every time you sit down to, quote unquote, improve your English, you have to make a dozen micro decisions.
Like, should I read a book?
Exactly. Should I watch a video? Should I practice grammar? And this causes intense decision fatigue.
Yes.
You burn through your cognitive fuel just trying to figure out what to do. And eventually, you're exhausted. So to make the GPS work, you need a tiny, highly specific plan. Not, I will improve, but today I will learn 3 new words.
Oh, wow. So the friction isn't a lack of desire at all. It's really just a lack of clarity.
Exactly.
When the brain faces that ambiguity, it defaults to what is easy and safe, which is
The sofa.
the comfortable sofa,
Yeah.
yes. And there is this other metaphor in the material that perfectly illustrates this. It compares time to a leaky water bottle.
Oh, I really like this one.
Yeah, it's so visual. So you start every day with a full bottle of water, which represents your waking hours. But if you walk around with a vague goal, you don't have a cup to pour that water into. So what happens? The water just drips out onto the floor.
It leaks out through the path of least resistance.
Exactly. You sit down at your desk without a specific plan, you feel a little bit of that decision fatigue, so you think, I'll just pick up my phone for a second.
And we all know how that ends.
Right. An hour later, you've just been scrolling through social media, and it's not like you intentionally threw that hour away,
No.
but because you didn't have a clear container for your time, it just leaked out. And once that time is on the floor, you can't drink it later. It's gone.
And this brings us to the actual biological mechanism behind why we fail. Vague goals force us to rely on motivation,
Okay.
but motivation is tied to our emotional state, which means, it is highly
Or
volatile.
rose up and down.
Yeah, it spikes when you watch a really inspiring movie and crashes when you have a stressful day at work. So if you rely on feeling motivated to tackle a massive, heavy goal, your amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for processing threats.
Right, the lizard brain.
Exactly.
Mm.
It actually perceives that massive task as a stressor, and it triggers a mild freeze response.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in modern life, the freeze response looks exactly like procrastination.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So if the vague goal is paralyzing our brain and causing all our time to just leak away, what is the alternative? Like, how do we navigate without relying on this super volatile emotion of motivation?
The alternative is a fundamental shift in focus. You have to stop staring at the outcome, and instead you build a system.
Okay, a system. Let's dig into that. What does this all mean? Should we just completely ignore the outcome and do boring routines?
Well, no. The outcome is just the direction. It's the destination, like we said.
Yeah.
But the system is the daily engine that actually moves the car.
Okay, I follow.
A system is a reliable, repeatable series of small daily actions. It is the how. The material actually draws on this concept of the 1% rule, made famous by James Clear in Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah, great book.
It's brilliant. The idea is that compounding tiny habits is infinitely more powerful than attempting these massive overnight transformations.
But wait, let me push back here for a second. Because if we only focus on a tiny, 5-minute system, and we deliberately ignore the big, beautiful outcome, don't we lose the emotional fire that gets us out of bed in the first place?
I hear what you're saying.
Doesn't a system without a dream just become another boring mechanical chore?
That is a fantastic point, and it's a really common fear, but it's actually the opposite. The system doesn't replace the passion, right? It protects the passion from burnout.
Oh, I see.
Think about it this way. The dream gets you out of bed on day 1, but the system is what gets you out of bed on day 40 when it's raining outside and you're exhausted.
Yeah, that is so true.
By reducing the expectation to just 5 or 10 minutes of effort a day, you bypass that amygdala threat response. The brain looks at a 5-minute task and says, oh, well, that's not a threat. We can handle that.
So you are essentially flying under your brain's own radar.
Exactly. You are removing the friction of starting. And because you can do it easily, you do it consistently. Over time, that consistency builds huge momentum.
The real-world applications in the material are super striking. There is this example of someone who wants to get fit, but instead of committing to, an hour-long boot camp, their entire system is just exercising for 5 minutes a day.
Which sounds too small to work, but it does.
Right. And another example is a professional trying to build a massive online course. The dream is super intimidating, but her system is to work on the course idea for exactly 15 minutes every single weekday. No more, no less.
Yeah, 15 minutes feels so light that you really can't logically justify skipping it.
Yeah.
The dream of the completed course is huge and scary, but the 15-minute system is safe, and this is where the identity shift happens.
Let's say more about that.
When you execute a system every single day, even for just 5 minutes, you are casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. You start to see yourself not as someone who wants to learn English, but as someone who studies English daily.
But let's look at the reality of daily life for a second, because in a perfectly controlled environment, a 5-minute system sounds absolutely foolproof.
Sure.
But life is noisy, right? You come home, the kids are screaming, work emails are just piling up, your phone is constantly buzzing. Even a tiny 15-minute system can get crushed under the weight of a busy Tuesday.
Oh, easily.
So how do we ensure these systems actually survive contact with reality?
Well, to survive the chaos, you have to tether your system to reality. And the material introduces this really brilliant behavioral tool for this, using the metaphor of an anchor.
An anchor. Okay. So how does the anchor work in this context?
So think about a physical boat on the ocean. The boat represents your abstract dream or your goal. The water is constantly moving, the wind is howling, and the current is trying to drag the boat out to sea.
Right, which are the distractions of your day.
Exactly. If the boat is just floating there, it will drift away and disappear. To keep it in one place, you drop a heavy iron anchor down to the solid seabed. In human behavior, an anchor is one specific physical daily action that you already do, which you use to tie down your new system.
Oh, I love that. So you are tethering something abstract and fragile, like the desire to study, to something physical and permanent that you already do every day.
Yes. From a neurobiological perspective, this is called habit stacking. The neural pathways for the things you do every single day, like brushing your teeth, doing your morning coffee, starting your car, those are incredibly thick and well established.
Your brain just does them on autopilot.
Right. But if you try to create a new habit out of thin air, it requires a lot of cognitive energy. If you anchor your new, tiny system to an existing permanent habit, you piggyback on those strong neural pathways.
This fundamentally changes the approach, because instead of saying, I will study English sometime today, you are saying, when I turn on the coffee machine, I will review 3 vocabulary words.
And that distinction is absolutely critical, because the word sometime is dangerous. It's the enemy of the system.
Oh yeah, sometime usually means never.
Exactly. Your brain will constantly defer the task until the end of the day, and by the end of the day, your decision-making battery is at absolute zero.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when we talk about finding time to execute these anchors, the material introduces this concept of pocket time.
Oh, pocket time is a wonderful way to conceptualize this.
It totally reframes how we view our schedules. So imagine your daily time like coins in your pocket. You might have a few big coins, maybe a rare, uninterrupted 1-hour block on a Sunday afternoon.
If you're lucky.
Right. And most people wait for those big coins to work on their dreams. But we all possess dozens of small coins. Like 5 minutes waiting for the bus, 7 minutes standing at the stove while pasta boils.
Or 4 minutes sitting in the school pickup line.
Exactly. These are your time coins. This is your pocket time.
And historically, what is the default human behavior with those small coins?
Oh, we throw them away. The moment we have 3 minutes of idle time, we instinctively pull out our phones, check our messages, read a headline, and just toss that time coin straight into the trash.
We all do it.
But the material argues that your daily anchor doesn't require a perfectly quiet 1-hour block. You can use a 5-minute coin of pocket time to execute your system.
Yes. You can anchor your learning to the bus stop. You can anchor your listening practice to the time it takes to wash the dinner dishes. You are literally reclaiming the lost margins of your life.
It is incredibly empowering to realize you don't need more time. You just need to stop throwing away the pocket time you already have.
Exactly.
Now, we have been covering a lot of psychological ground today, and we've been using some very specific terminology. So to make sure these foundational ideas are firmly locked into your memory, let's take a cozy little vocabulary tour to define the most important concepts we've discussed.
I think that's a great idea. Mapping out these 4 core concepts really helps crystallize the entire framework.
Awesome. Let's start with the trap. Our first word is vague.
So vague simply means undefined or lacking coordinates. In our context, a vague goal is a wish without a map. I will improve my life is vague. I will read 1 page is clear. And it matters because ambiguity triggers decision fatigue and procrastination.
Right. If you tell yourself, I want to be better at English, your brain doesn't know what to do. It's vague. Which leads us to the second concept, the outcome.
The outcome is your destination. It is the final result or big wish you are hoping for, like losing weight or speaking fluent English. Outcomes are essential for setting your direction, but they're terrible for dictating your daily actions because they are too large and overwhelming for the brain to process all at once.
Right. The outcome is like the picture on the front of the puzzle box. It shows you what you are building, but you can't build the puzzle just by staring at the box. You have to put the pieces together.
Exactly.
And those pieces are our third concept, the system.
The system is the vehicle. It is a reliable series of small daily actions and routines that automatically move you toward that outcome.
Okay.
A system bypasses the need for volatile motivation by relying on routine. I will read 1 paragraph every morning.
Yeah.
Is a system. It is small, manageable, and builds compounding momentum over time.
So the system is the actual path you walk on. And finally, to make sure we don't drift off that path when life gets super chaotic, we have the fourth concept, the anchor.
The anchor is a metaphor for a specific small daily action that grounds your goal into your real life. It's a pre-existing daily habit like drinking your coffee or your morning commute that acts as the trigger for your system. It prevents your goal from drifting away when you get busy.
Vague outcome system anchor. When you understand how these four concepts interact, you really realize why the old model of relying on New Year's resolutions and massive willpower was just always doomed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You start blaming yourself for being lazy, and you start looking at how your environment is designed.
Exactly. You shift from a paradigm of moral failing to a paradigm of system design. If you fail to study, it's not because you were a bad person or lacked drive.
Right.
It's simply because your system was too large, your goal was too vague, and you forgot to drop your anchor.
That is just a profoundly forgiving way to look at self-improvement. We've covered so much incredible ground today. We've seen that your life isn't going to transform from one dramatic movie moment where everything just magically falls into place.
No, it rarely does.
True. Lasting change comes from small, intentional systems. It comes from dropping the vague goals, building a tiny system, and finding your daily anchor.
And perhaps most importantly, it comes from letting go of the heavy pressure to be perfect from day one. Systems are designed to be resilient, not flawless.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this conversation, I want to turn directly to you, our listener, and ask you for a tiny favor. We don't want this to just be passive listening. We want you to actively apply this framework right now.
Yes, right now.
Here is our question for you. What is your anchor action for your English this month? I want you to really think about it. Choose just one small, highly realistic action.
Keep it super simple.
Tie it to a specific physical trigger, like boiling the water for your morning tea or sitting on the train during your commute. Make it so small that your brain cannot possibly say no to it.
And as you define that anchor, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We often delay starting because we feel we aren't ready, or our environment isn't quiet enough, or, we don't have a full hour to dedicate.
Right.
But your big dream, it doesn't need a perfect version of you. It is incredibly patient. It doesn't judge you if you missed yesterday or if you only have 3 minutes of pocket time today.
Oh, I love that.
Your dream just needs a you who keeps coming back to the anchor day after day. A messy, imperfect start today using just a tiny 5-minute system is infinitely more powerful than a perfect one day that never actually arrives.
That is the absolute truth. You don't need a new life, you just need a new system. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Remember, you didn't waste your time listening to this. You collected those time coins and you invested them in yourself.
And those investments will absolutely compound over time.
They will. Until next time, keep your systems small, keep your anchor strong, and take care of yourselves.
Keep moving forward. Goodbye.